Genesis chapter 3, verse 17, where God is now going to pronounce his judgment upon Adam for the transgression in the garden. To de Adam apen, hati ekusas tes phones tes gunaikasu, kai ephages apa tu zulu, hu in a telamain soi, tutu manu me phagen ap altu. And then we'll continue here in just a second with the rest of it. Well, we'll start with the person to whom the Lord God is speaking, to de Adam. Notice the de there is advancing the narrative further. It's not a kai, it's a de. And it's to Adam. This is a good reminder of what we saw last time, that when this whole scene began, God addresses the man, who then blames the woman, who then blames the serpent. So it goes that order. But in terms of the consequences, God starts with the serpent in verse 15. He moves to the woman in verse 16, and now he is back with the man in verse 17. So there's a nice mirror image there in the structure. Apen, or the aorist of Lego, is again our operative verb. We've seen that numerous times. So God said to Adam, hati here is going to be explanatory because, and then our verb here is ekusas. This, of course, is from akuo, with the sigma aspect indicator, the as ending, and the lengthening on the front end. This will be a second singular aorist. Because you heard, or you could perhaps say because you listened to. And then you have a genitive of tes phones. Now, akuo can take the accusative, but quite often it will take a genitive as its direct object. So this is not going to be an of the voice. This will be because you listen to the voice. And then we have a real genitive of the woman, but it's your woman. So you'd say because you listen to the voice of your wife. That's how you would take that. And for kai there, ephages. We've seen this numerous times. This is from estheo. In the aorist form, it switches to a phag, epsilon on the front end. This is a second singular aorist active indicative. And ate, and then from what did he eat? Apa to Zulu. So apa here would be from the tree. That's what Zulon is. And then we have further clarification about this tree. So the who here is a relative pronoun referring back to the tree from which, and then we have a command, or the word for command. In a telomane here is from intelomai, and with the main ending, there is theoretically a sigma under the hood here, but it has been lost because this is a liquid. You also see the epsilon past time indicator after the in. So this is actually first singular aorist middle indicative, from which I commanded you here, soy, Adam. That's really important. This is referring back to Adam, to whom the commandment was given. And then we have tutu manu, of this alone, me phagein. Notice the me there is used with the infinitive form. This is the aorist active infinitive of phagein, which is also from estheo. Not to eat, and then ap autu, slightly redundant there, from it. So we would say something like, you ate from the tree of which I commanded you, of this alone not to eat from it. And so you probably would smooth that out, but that makes enough sense on its own. So what are the consequences? And by the way, God here is quoting himself from Genesis 3:11, almost verbatim. Let's press on. Epikataratas hege, en tois ergoisu, en lupais phage autain, pasas tes tas hemeras tes zoes su. So this is the actual punishment. We begin with a word we've seen in a prior video. This was in Genesis 3:15. Epikataratas here, or arur in Hebrew, means cursed. And because it's in predicate position, it's not directly after the article here. It would be something like, cursed be the land or the earth, or the land is cursed. And he goes on to qualify, in tois ergois, in your workings, or something like that with the su there. So as you work it, it will be cursed. It will not respond the way you want it to respond. And this is quite important. God has not cursed the man, nor has he cursed the woman. He is cursing the land. And it's kind of similar to how he cursed the serpent in Genesis 3:15. Then we go on to find out in lupais, this is from lupe. This was the same word that was used for the punishment upon the woman earlier, and it means the grief, in the griefs or in the sorrows, something like that. You will eat. Phage here is also from estheo, now for the third time in this verse, second singular future, middle indicative there. Since you don't have the epsilon on the front end, you do have that second singular future middle ending. So in grief or in sufferings you will eat it, that is from the land, if you will, pasas tas hemeras, all the days, tes zoesu, of your life. And so that's kind of interesting. The punishment on the serpent was that he would eat, phage, from the dust or the earth. The punishment on the woman is that she would bear children in lupais, in griefs and sorrows and so forth. Now the curse on the curse on the land is that Adam would, in the same sort of sorrows, do the same kind of eating from the earth. Not quite like the serpent, but there is an interesting relationship there. Moreover, given that it's all the days of life here, we remember earlier in Genesis that Adam was able to eat from all kinds of other trees, including the tree of life, but just not from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Because of his sin now, he's going to eat with toil and from a cursed land all the days of his life instead of eating the blessed fruit of the tree of life. So it's really kind of a sad outcome there. I'll mention that I do think Romans 8, Paul is alluding not only to this particular verse, but really to the broader construct of Genesis 3. When he describes how creation is waiting, referring to really all of creation, with this eager longing, and that it was subjected to futility by the one who subjected it, presumably God here, who is pronouncing this curse, waiting for the children of God that Eve would bear, of course, the children of promise, and so forth, and that it was groaning until now. I think all of that is not a direct citation by any means. Basically, none of the words are reused here. But it shows the theological basis of his argument goes back to the Genesis account. There is one minor connection. He does describe how the earth is sustenazai, and that is related to the noun stenagmos that was in Genesis 3:16 with the birth pangs. So there could be a minor connection there. But I do think Genesis 3:17 is the foundation of Paul's broader theology of creation itself is actually part of the curse, and is awaiting not just, it's awaiting the redemption of the sons of God, the sort of spiritual salvation, but that's going to have impacts on the broader creation as well in terms of this cosmic renewal that he has envisioned here in Romans 8. And in fact, when you read Romans, it doesn't make a lot of sense for him to say this unless you understand that elsewhere in Romans, like chapter 5 and so forth, he has the Genesis 3 scene involved, not only in terms of the spiritual consequences, but also the consequences on earth.